I want to apologize for being in such an echoey space, but you'll see why I am in one soon enough. And for anyone who's been watching this channel for any amount of time, you've probably heard me mention a few times that I'm a professional artist. That's what I do for a living. And I'm currently in the middle of an artist residency. Basically, that means that I go to a place, they usually give me a studio, sometimes they give me a place to live, and I just sort of do stuff with the community while working on whatever art projects I happen to be working on. So I've led some artist workshops, I've done some artist talks, I actually have one coming up tomorrow, and I've been doing sort of other events related to that, sort of meet and greets with people. So I'm just going to go through this video, I'm going to show you kind of what I've been working on, and then bring you downstairs, away from my studio, to the gallery, where I currently have a solo exhibition going on, which is actually being torn down tomorrow. So yeah, without any further ado, I guess I should show you my art a little bit more. This is the studio space that I've been given to work in. I've been using that easel for a lot of the drawings I've been doing. Most of the drawings I've been doing are unfinished, but let's take a look at one of those now. That is the church just across the street out my window, and when I came here the weather was really bad, so I just drew what I could see out the window. And yeah, like I said, not finished, but maybe I'll finish it later. And then this drawing right here I started working on a little bit ago. Like I said, I've been working on drawings of the fishing industry in my home province for several years now. And this is a salmon farm. I finally got to see a salmon farm in action a few weeks ago, and now I'm making a drawing based on it. If you don't know, a salmon farm is basically they raise salmon right in these huge pens that are out in the water. They're kind of controversial because the waste from the salmon spreads to the local ecosystem in a very large amount, which does damage to the seafloor below and all of the stuff that lives down there. And also, because the salmon are so close together, they're prone to certain diseases, including sea lice, which also spread to the local ecosystem and do quite a bit of damage. It's a pretty controversial practice, but 70% of the world's salmon comes from farms just like this. Most of it is not wild. This drawing is definitely not finished. I just laid down the basic tones, so it's very roughly drawn, but yeah, anyway, so that's the studio. But it's part of this huge room in here, which I could also be using as my studio, and maybe if this residency was a year long, I would make like huge drawings on all the walls and really fill the space and have a lot of drawings on the go at once. But since this residency is only a month long, I'm just kind of using that small area in there. But anyway, let's go downstairs to the gallery and see the work of mine that I'm actually kind of proud of. So yeah, let's bring you downstairs. Whoa. Don't trip on the stairs, that would make an interesting video, but I don't want to do it. Anyway, so this is the gallery, and as you can tell, it's late at night. Nobody's around, it's almost midnight, so let me just go turn on the lights. So yeah, this is the exhibition. It's called Fishers because I'm so creative. And it's about 17 or 18 charcoal drawings. I can't remember which. And the largest of them are about 5 feet by 8 feet in size. I started the project in 2021, and I knew that I wanted to get in contact with actual fishers so I could see what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's just, I didn't know any. So out of pure luck, I was like casting around, asking online and things like that. And my dad actually met the owner of a lobster boat at a bar. So one thing led to another, and I was invited to go out for a day of lobster fishing. Now, they had 250 lobster traps, each in sets of 10. So that's 25 sets of 10 lobster traps. And I made it to about the second set of 25 before I started profusely projectile vomiting everywhere. That was really intense, and it made me think, you know, gee, maybe a fishing industry series is not the thing for me if I get seasick. But it turns out that if I go out on mild conditions, I'm actually quite
comfortable on boats. So this was a different lobster boat that I went on. Actually, all 5 of these drawings are from the same lobster boat trip that I did maybe a year and a half later. And this was really great because it was a sunny day, it was pretty calm waters, and I spent like 8 or 9 hours just watching them haul in lobster and taking all these photos and taking all these sketches. And I should say, usually for my artwork, I will make art based on sketches that I've done. So a lot of the time I draw buildings and factories and industries and things like that, and because those things stand still, it's easy to just sit there for hours and sketch them, and then just go back and turn those sketches into big drawings by referencing the sketches and copying them, kind of. But with this kind of project where people are always moving around and there's a lot of action going on, I was kind of forced to take photos and reference the photos. But in a lot of cases, I would modify the photos when I was copying them into the drawings. Like, for example, if I saw somebody in one position that I liked, I took a picture of that, and then another position, I would take a picture of that as well, and then I would kind of combine the photos as I was drawing to get the ideal poses out of everybody and to arrange them in the image how I wanted. So even though I'm referencing photos, I'm not just copying them verbatim. In most cases, I'm making some adjustments to them so that they're better pieces of art when I turn them into drawings. So even though this project took me years, the images that you see here were gathered from 5 different days, which is crazy. I've never really thought about it that way before, but yeah, 5 different days of just watching people associated with the fishing industry do what they do best and trying to conceptualize the best way to visualize that. And as you can probably guess from the drawing I have upstairs in my studio, this project is not over in my mind. There's so many different angles to the fishing industry that I haven't already covered. So I guess what I can do is just sort of talk about the drawings a few at a time to just sort of give you a sense for what's going on in each of them. So this one right here is from the day that I went to the fish processing plant. These guys are cutting up salmon and packaging them. So yeah, in the one on the left, you can see that they are taking full salmon bodies and putting them in ice. So presumably these salmon are going to be going a lot further afield and they need to be packed in ice, and I guess they keep fresher if they're together with their whole bodies, right? And then the one on the right is fish being cut up for, I'm assuming, local markets. You can see in the foreground here, that's what the fish are going to look like when it's going to be salmon fillet, basically. And so you can see the salmon being separated from its body, the head being cut off, and the 2 flanks being sort of sliced. And then on the left right there, you can see the water splashing and, I guess, cleaning it. Yeah. Then right here, this one I've titled spare parts because these are the parts of the salmon that do not get eaten by people, and these kinds of spare parts are used as bait to catch things like lobster and other fish. So it all gets used, which is sort of nice to know. And then right here, this is an image of the first of all, that's a scale for weighing fish, and then all of this accounting is being done. You can see these receipts and invoices that are, oh, this fish is going here, we're getting paid this much for this shipment, this restaurant needs this many salmon, things like that. And part of this project was to stray away from the stereotypical, like, postcard-friendly, touristy-looking images of quaint little fishing villages, and just get into the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day life of the fishing industry and all the little things that go into it, all the work that goes into it, all the logistics of taking seafood from the ocean to the plate and distributing it, and all of those little things, just to make people kind of aware of where the things in their lives come from, and maybe not take for granted all of the labor that goes into it, all of the environmental impacts, all those little things. So yeah, all of this is from the same day. The fish processing plant, really interesting to just watch. So after I watched those guys packaging fish and cutting them up and getting them ready to ship and all that, a halibut boat came in. Let's move over to that. So this is a halibut fishing boat, and you can see all those buckets there. Let's get close there. So halibut are caught using long line fishing. So they tie all of these ropes together, and it basically goes to the bottom of the ocean, and it's baited all the way on the length of this long line, and various fish catch it. So they pick the halibut when they draw the rope in, they throw back what they can't use or they aren't going to use back into the ocean. And yeah, halibut is a delicacy. I've never tried it, but I know it's quite expensive, especially halibut cheek. But yeah, this is my favorite drawing in the exhibition. It took me a few months to draw, I think 4 months maybe. And I still don't really consider it done. I wish I had gone further with the atmospheric perspective in the background and faded the tones in order to bring the tones of the foreground forward a little bit more. And that's the thing you're always doing when you're doing a big charcoal drawing with this, is managing all of the tone so that it's even, so that the things that should be brought forward are brought forward, and the things that should look like they're in the background look like they're behind the other things. And that means going in with eraser constantly, and fixing every tone and doing that over and over again. So a lot of the time I draw and then I erase, and then I draw and then I erase, and I draw and erase on the same spot just to get it as close to how I want it as I can. It's still not where I want it. So yeah, I guess I'm a perfectionist because I don't feel like most of these drawings are finished, but yeah. So what else to talk about? Let's talk about the portraits. So like I said, I took a ton of photographs while doing this project, and eventually I thought, like, why don't I actually zoom in and make artwork just of the people who are working, because they're very much a certain type that a lot of people who live in fishing communities would recognize, right? So I started zooming in on random photographs I took and being like, oh, this is an interesting face, this is an interesting look, or whatever the case was. And then I just turned those into charcoal drawings. So I got rid of the background and all that, and I just focused on the person. This one I'm the least sure about, but I do like the dirt and the specks of grime that are on the shirt and the jacket and everything like that. This guy was really enthusiastic about sawing off the halibut heads. So the idea is they unload the halibut, they dump them off in these huge buckets, and you can see that guy on the left, that's him right there. And then they bring these huge buckets into the fish processing plant where they start cutting them up and packaging them, and the first thing they do is cut off their heads pretty much. But this guy was like, fuck it, I want to go home early, so I'm just going to start cutting off the fish heads right now. And he started like grabbing fish from the bucket, sawing off the head, throwing it back in. You can see a scale right there, so they have to weigh the fish to know how much they caught. There's government workers from the Department of Fisheries, whatever, to make sure that they're catching how much they say they caught, that they're not going over their limit because they're trying to be sustainable about it, things like that. So yeah, just a lot of processes involved in this. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Just you can see lobster pot being dropped back into the water. They check their traps or their lobster pots or whatever you want to call them. They take the lobster out and then they dump them back and set them back for more lobster to come in. You can see kind of more of that detail here, where you've got this guy pulling lobsters right out of the trap. This guy is putting bands on them, and then you've got some lobster down here waiting to be like packed. These drawings here show just things that I noticed while I was on the lobster boat. So every boat that I've ever been on has a barometer on it to mark changes in air pressure so that they can tell if the weather's about to get bad. I actually took the broken glass from another photo that I took of, I believe, a clock or a thermometer or something. And then I just drew the broken glass as a reference over top of the barometer because I thought it would kind of allude to bad weather or, oh, this ship has been through storms or whatever. And then down here are some of the tools. One thing I noticed a lot of when I was on lobster boats is that there are knives everywhere sticking out of a lot of surfaces, so I had to capture that for sure. You can see also right there, that is for measuring the lobster. A lobster has to be a certain size or else they throw it away. Also, if a lobster has eggs on it, they make a little clip in the tail which will grow back after a few months, and that will let lobster fishers know that this is a very fertile female, and to let her live to do her reproducing because they want the lobster stock to stay sustainable, because nobody wants to overfish because it'll destroy the whole industry if you do that. And speaking of sustainability, let's just go over here because I want to show you the thing from when I went to see the scallop farmer and be on his boat. So this was a pretty unusual way of getting seafood, at least in the West. So scallops are usually gotten with these huge ships that go out for weeks and they trawl the ocean floor. It's basically like clear cutting a forest. They drag these enormous nets that are weighted along the ocean floor and hopefully like scrape up the scallops, but as you can imagine, that does a lot of damage to the sea floor. So it's kind of controversial. So if you eat scallops, I've got bad news for you. But some people do scallop farming. Basically, it's growing scallops as if they were plants, and you hang them on the vine, so to speak, right in the water, so they're able to do their filter feeding. And you grow them from these tiny little things. They even call them scallop seeds. And they grow them for, I think he said it was 2 to 3 years until they're ready to be turned into food. And what you can see the two people doing here, they're scraping all of the gunk off of them because these scallops are big enough to be sold as meat. And I participated in this. I did a lot of the scraping. I got to eat raw scallop that day. It has a really weird texture to it, but the flavor is a lot sweeter if scallops are raw. It was a really cool experience and very different kind of vibe from the other fishing boats I've been on. And then after all of this seafood gets gathered, it gets brought onto food trucks in a lot of cases. So if you're not a restaurant, if you're not a grocery store, a lot of people will just have a business of buying fish as soon as it's caught right from the fishers and then going on the road and just selling it, usually at better prices than the grocery stores. And then this is based on a photo I took while I was on a lobster boat. I guess what I should say to leave off is just that it's a really surreal experience to have all my work on a gallery wall like this. I've been doing solo exhibitions. My first one was in 2016, so it's almost been 10 years that I've been getting solo exhibitions, but it's never felt any less strange to see my work up on walls like this and presented in such a, I don't know, a way that almost feels prestigious. But yeah, this is just a look at one of my exhibitions, and I hope you liked it. I think it's resonated with a lot of people. A lot of people will come in and say, oh, I'm from a fishing family, or I own a fishing boat, and they tell me about their experiences and say that I've captured it, or whatever the case may be, and it's a really special feeling. I hope that if you're watching this, you're kind of interested in the work that I do, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about it. And if you're a fellow artist or fellow creative in any way, I'd love to hear about what you make. And if you have been thinking about trying to be an artist or trying to learn how to draw or whatever, there's no time like today, so just start doodling. You don't have to make good drawings, like just do it anyway. Do it because you like what it feels like to create something. Don't do it because you want to have it be perfect. I could see people wondering how I got this exhibition or this residency or whatever. Most of the time for opportunities, you can just go online and look for calls for submissions, calls for opportunities for artists, things like that. Sometimes when you get to a certain point, you start getting invited to things, so you don't even have to reply, you just get asked. And it seems like that transition is just starting to happen for me now. For this show, how it happened was I was just Googling around in my province for galleries that were looking for proposals for solo exhibitions. And I saw this one, and I saw that they paid their artists exhibition fees, which a lot of galleries don't. Shame on them. And so I applied for it. And then when I got approved for it, I was talking to the gallery people on the phone, and they were just like, hey, do you want to come up and do a residency? And I was like, yes, absolutely. So you never know what's going to happen if you apply. And, you know, keep your eye out for things like grants and contests, and maybe literary journals often take submissions for artwork as well. So yeah, just keep your eye out for opportunities and always submit to things if you have the time, and never tell yourself you're not good enough. Yeah, that's it. So thank you for watching, and leave a like and comment and whatever the fuck, and I will see you next time, probably with a book review. But yeah, bye!